President Trump turning back to his agenda, heading to Missouri this afternoon to lay out his vision for a better tax system. The commander-in-chief will explain his plan to jumpstart the economy by reducing the tax burden for both American companies and workers. Joining us now is Dan Mitchell, Cato Institute tax policy analyst, senior fellow. Dan, what are you expecting to hear from the president today? Are we going to get any more details on what the White House really wants out of Congress on this?
The White House simply wants a bill that Trump can sign. All through the process, going all the way back to the campaign, Trump has just wanted a big tax cut, the centerpiece of which is actually really, really good, a much lower corporate tax rate. But a lot of the other details, they're just telling Congress, look, get your you-know-what together, come to an agreement, and there are some big fights. What are you going to do about small business taxes? What are you going to do about middle-class tax relief? What are you going to do about revenue neutrality versus a 10-year tax cut? There are lots of things still to be hashed out. And as far as I can tell, the White House simply says, you guys figure out something, send us a bill, we'll sign it.
But to the credit of Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin and the chief economic advisor, Gary Cohn, they have been meeting with congressional leaders for months now. And even Gary Cohn, in that interview that he gave to the Financial Times, he said that it seems like that the White House is going to be pushing getting rid of the state and local tax deduction as a way to generate revenue.
Oh, no, the White House is encouraging this process, and they're participating in the meetings with the leaders from the House and the Senate. So they're not just sitting back waiting for a bill. They're cajoling and trying to work with Congress to get something. And there's no question, given the fact that Republicans are pretty weak on controlling spending, if you're going to do a big tax reform package, you have to get rid of some of the loopholes in the tax code. And the state and local tax deduction is probably the worst loophole because it winds up subsidizing and encouraging very high tax rates in states like New York and California, Illinois, and New Jersey.
Dan, last time we actually got tax reform, it took multiple years to get done back during the Reagan administration. So do you think the end-all be-all here will actually just be a simplified tax cut for multiple years? We won't really end a lot of these loopholes given the fact that the tax code is 75,000 pages. It's complex, convoluted. You'll have every special interest trying to defend it. So will we just get a kind of simple tax cut to get us through for a few years? Is that what's going to happen?
In my fantasy world, we'd rip up the entire 76,000 pages and have a simple and fair flat tax. However, I'm realistic. I've been beaten down by the reality of Washington. I want at least a decent step in the right direction. Now, that means in an ideal, and again, not my fantasy world, but just an ideal world, let's at least do semi-tax reform. Let's get rid of some of these loopholes like the state and local tax deduction. Let's lower rates, reduce double taxation. Will it be perfect? No. Will it get rid of any of the 75,000 pages? I hope so, but I'm not holding my breath on that. But there's no question we could have a tax code that is not nearly as destructive and as nearly as damaging to U.S. competitiveness as the one we have right now, if they can simply come together and deal with some of these issues. But the key thing is, if you want to maximize the growth, you don't just want a tax cut that expires after 10 years. You want to have at least semi-permanent tax reform.
Yeah, we don't want it to expire, right? Because businesses won't really act in a significant way if the tax cut's going to disappear. Yeah, Dan, bottom line, are we going to get this by the end of the year?
Republicans are desperate to do something after the Obamacare disaster that they had. And so not only do they have their constituents breathing down their neck, not only is the White House badgering them to get something done, they're looking at their own political survival. They're thinking, okay, 2018 midterm elections, they want to do something. I don't know how they solve some of these big problems, revenue neutrality versus 10-year tax cuts, but I know that they have a giant incentive to get it done. And so for once, I'm semi-optimistic that they'll come to an agreement.
Yeah, because they're worried about their own hides. Dan, well put. Very frank and honest. Dan Mitchell, thank you so much. Great to see you.